Tori Petrie here with your Road to the Draft coverage brought to you by Kroger. And today I've got Matt Miller with us, who was actually on our podcast way back at the Senior Bowl. He's the founder of thedraftscout.com and an ESPN NFL draft analyst. Matt, thank you so much for coming back to talk about the draft with us again.
Yeah, Tori, it's nice to be talking, not freezing in the stands of the new stadium in Mobile, Alabama, but hopefully we'll get a chance to do that again in January.
Absolutely. Well, I thought it would be fun to kind of look back because a lot has changed for the Lions since January. When you and I talked, we knew that the Lions were exploring trade options for Matthew Stafford, but that trade had not yet come together. It did a few days later after you and I spoke, but now that changes things for the Lions. So when we were talking about what the Lions might do at number 7. Of course, before that trade went down, we talked a lot about quarterback. How likely do you think it is that the Lions go that direction now?
I think it is a possibility, but unlikely, right? It's the NFL draft. Nothing really surprises us. You expect the unexpected, but I think the Lions have really signaled a commitment to Jared Goff for at least the 2021 season by bringing him in, accepting the contract that comes with that. And I think we can even see by the draft capital that they gained in that trade, sending Matthew Stafford to the LA Rams, is that they're really well positioned for next year. Now, the thing that could turn all this upside down is that if that front office actually says that one of these quarterbacks that they do value him higher than they do Jared Goff, or if they see one of the quarterbacks as a developmental player that can then work behind Jared Goff, which you would find yourself, we don't see this very often anymore, but you would find yourself in a great situation if Jared Goff plays well in 2021 and you've added a first round quarterback, because then you have the ultimate scenario where you can move one and gain even more draft capital and ideally not have to use any of those 2022 first-round picks at the position. So they could really go a number of directions here. I think quarterback is, a small percent chance it could happen. Again, it wouldn't be a total shock, but I think the moves they've made signal that they're probably going elsewhere in round 1.
All right, your pick back then in January for the Lions was Justin Fields. So now that we are just days away from the draft, who's your pick for the Lions at number 7?
Yeah, we're going to change that one. Unfortunately, I still love Justin Fields, but it just seems like a luxury pick. I honestly think the Lions are in a great position to trade down because, again, if they're not going to draft a quarterback at 7, you're really sitting in a sweet spot of teams that either want to get ahead of the Denver Broncos with the number 9 pick, or you're in a spot to call the Denver Broncos and say, you need to move up here so someone else doesn't, which we've seen happen before. Obviously, the Chicago Bears did it when they took Mitchell Trubisky. Last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did it when they drafted Tristan Wirfs. So we have seen teams move up just slightly to secure their guy. And I think that's something that Detroit has to do a good job of signaling. Again, maybe it's smokescreen season a little bit, but you want those teams to think that, hey, maybe we could draft a quarterback because you want them calling you to make sure that you don't draft one. So I think right now, that's probably the philosophy right now is to try to trade down. And in that situation, I still think wide receiver is a huge need for this team, even with the additions and free agency, to go find that number 1 receiver. So as of today, I think Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver from Alabama, would be a fantastic fit for them. He is the most explosive wide receiver to come out of college football in quite some time, even comparing him to Henry Ruggs, who also came out of Alabama last year. His 20-yard acceleration is legendary. He's not just a vertical threat. He has a great build to run after the catch. He can play underneath. So unlike some of the smaller, fast vertical receivers we've seen the past 5 or 6 years, I see Jalen Waddle as really a complete wide receiver who can play that position as a number 1 and run a full route tree that would really benefit, especially an underneath thrower like Jared Goff.
Well, wide receiver was definitely a position we talked about way back in January, and it is still a need for the Lions. But another position that's been a hot topic during draft conversations for Detroit is the offensive line. They've got a really strong offensive line, but that right tackle position is a little bit of a question mark. Penei Sewell, certainly a name up there at the top of the draft. Who knows if he's there for the Lions at number 7. But Rashawn Slater is in the conversation as well. And I've watched a couple other videos of yours, and you like Slater.
I really do, Tori. And I think the cool thing about Rashawn Slater with Detroit is that he has played right tackle. I mean, he did it early in his career at Northwestern, obviously moving to left tackle 2019 season was tremendous. But I think the versatility with Slater is really exciting, where he can play right tackle. He could play guard. I know some teams have said if he played center, he would be an all-pro at that position. So his versatility is really exciting. And something that I think will be interesting with, like you said, with Brad Holmes, with the staff that he put together, which we had talked about, previously, it's a really good staff. And I think one thing that where this staff kind of originates, the scouting tree that they come from, your first round pick of your first draft has to be a hit. Rashawn Slater would be that type of hit, a very, very safe player, maybe not the most exciting pick along the offensive line, but someone who is going to be a fixture there for 10 years, like a Brandon Scherf, like a Zach Martin, who's just a plug and play instant impact guy.
All right, this draft is pretty strong offensively up there near the top. But Dan Campbell himself said, hey, I think my roster, I've got a few more pieces I'm more excited about offensively than defensively. So maybe the Lions need to do a little bit of work on defense in this draft. How do you see them addressing that, whether it be on the first day or more so in the next 2 days of the draft?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, the defensive class is not real strong at the top this year. So in my opinion, it makes more sense to stockpile rounds 2, 3, and 4 on the defensive side of the ball, whether that be another corner to go with Jeff Okudah. I know the linebacker position is one Lions fans are constantly asking me about. And the great news is those two positions are incredibly deep this year. And there are only 32 picks in the first round, right? It feels like there are 50 players who everyone thinks will be first round picks this year. That's good news for the Detroit Lions, that when you come around on the swing at the top of round 2, there could be very good linebackers there, like a Zaven Collins from Tulsa. Maybe Jamin Davis from Kentucky somehow finds his way out of the first round. Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. There are good linebackers who will be had at the top of round 2 that could be long-time NFL starters. So I think in that way, the needs of the Lions matches up with where this draft is really deep on day 2.
All right, well, the draft is way more than just night 1. Matt, thank you so much for joining us again, for revisiting those picks and remaking them. We're looking forward to seeing what happens on draft night. Have a great time in Cleveland.
Yeah, thank you so much.